That's how we own it.
What's up, family? It's your girl, Tamika D, Mallory.
And it's your boy, Mysonne, the General.
And we are your hosts of Street Politicians, the place where the streets and politics meet. Happy New Year, Happy New Year, Happy New Year, people, all the Street Politicians fans, supporters, viewers, listeners, people who give us all types of feedback. I got a call from my son Tariq a few days ago where he said he spent time over the holiday when he wasn't doing much, just listening to Street Politicians podcast, old episodes, and he was giving me feedback on how the episodes are edited and ways that, you know, we need to bring some more flavor to the show and all of that. And I was like, that's kind of energy we need. We like that. We like feedback about what we can do. Well, what he was really talking about is the younger audience, right? And like making sure that we integrate younger voices around issues into our content. And I think that's true. I think right now, when we look at the guests that we have had over the last, 3 years now, specifically on the Black Effect podcast network, but in general, they more so are around our own age group, right? These are people sometimes a little older and every now and then a little younger, but really it's people who are probably 35 to 50 in that group that are out here really doing incredible work, who really are folks that are now, they're not at the beginning of their careers, but they're not at the end. They're really in that good part. Like that's the part where the meat is nice and tender. And they're really getting to become experts at their craft. And so I think, we've done a lot to showcase that, but there are a lot of younger people who are, even below 30 that are really advocating for justice on issues. You got lawyers out there. You got the first young Black mayor of one of the cities in this country. I mean, it's just so many different younger people, younger voices, and younger perspectives. And so, that is something that, and by the way, I think that goes on alongside the elderly community, right? And because they're, one of the topics we're going to talk about today in terms of the Dr. King's birthday, and we're going to, get into something that a lot of people don't know around that. I learned about it from our elders, right? From people who are over the age of 70, 75, and they have so much to offer as well. So as this new year begins, 2023, what I'm excited about for Street Politicians is the possibility of where we can go, knowing all that we know, having a team now that has really over the last year been able to, perfect what it looks like to have a strong podcast that has great content. And now I think we get to spice it up and add into the mix some of the things that we want to do that will hopefully be appealing to people like Tariq, who's like, listen, I got all that stuff and that stuff is good and don't stop. But let's add these elements as well to increase the younger viewership of the podcast.
Yeah, I think that's definitely what we need. Once again, Happy New Year to all of our fans. This is our first episode back, and we love you. And I hope that you didn't make New Year's resolutions. I just want you to make change, evolve the mind state. For the beginning of the new year, for the first 5 days, I went on a fast, to cleanse and just get to recenter myself. And I try to do that. And I want to be intentional about writing down my thoughts and writing down my plans so I can see them constantly. So I got a little thing on my refrigerator now that I write out things, and I write out my to-do list and I check it off as I go along because I see it and it reminds me that I haven't accomplished certain things. So I hope you're doing something like that is putting you in the mind frame about growing. It's every year, new year, it's just a time to refocus. I don't think, the new year, new me, everybody says that, but just getting this refocus and getting the time to focus on your mind, focus on your health, focus on your goals and really set to accomplish. For me, they say this is the Jordan year, 23, and Jordan was about execution, man. Jordan executed, he scored buckets, he put buckets on the board at a high level. So I think this is a year of execution for me. This is no longer just the planning stages and, you know, the ideas and the thought process. It's about really executing, fully executing, you know. So I hope that's what it is for you. I hope that you really are trying to manifest your ideas and manifest your dreams and manifest your goals and really carry them out from A to Z, because that's where I am.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And I hate to be the Debbie Downer, but when you talk about the Jordan year being 23, one of the things that I also learned during my vacation and holiday time was what 23 means, you know, to the human trafficking community, right? And that is an actual community. It is very scary. I learned through the story of this young woman, Marissa, who went missing. I was able to be educated in a few hours, 5 hours, but really the first few minutes of trying to help get this woman away from individuals who appeared to be trafficking her. And so much happened that has confirmed in so many ways that the situation she was in was dangerous. And the situation that she continues to be in from the Stockholm syndrome, you know, is very, very dangerous. And they also look at the Jordan year as a time to traffic more individuals to make more money, leading into major events like Super Bowl, All-Star Weekend, and all the major events that we see happening. There are people who have an underground economy going on, and the currency is the bodies of women and men, children, of all different races. But there's something special we know about Black bodies. And you know, I really need to emphasize for folks the danger of what we see going on out here with this human trafficking issue. We talk about sex trafficking, but human trafficking covers a lot of things, including organ stealing of organs, where people are picked up, maybe used in sexual ways or other ways, and then killed to remove limbs, to take hearts, body parts, to be sold off to people who have resources that need for their own family member or for whatever Black market is out there, or let's not call it Black, let's say the underground market that's out there. Human trafficking has a lot involved. But when we think about it, the first thing that comes to mind is women, right? We think women first, and we should think about women because I'm sure women are the highest victims, if you will, of human trafficking. But we also must make sure that we know so that we can keep ourselves, our young boys, and just all of us safe, is that men are also a part of this. And the issue of men being mules, where you see people who are working to capture, steal, those things. Women or other people, oftentimes they are also a part of, they have also are also being trafficked, and they are a mule where they're sent out to go do this work, and they have to come back with people, or else their family members are threatened with violence or death. They may be in a situation where a husband and wife or a daughter and father have both been captured, and the more harm will come to the child if the father or the brother does not go out and do these things and use their male stature to be able to take over a woman in her body and to bring her into this human trafficking culture. These are things we need to know. And we need to understand. Shout out to our sister, Tony Rivera, that has been on this show, and people see her nationally. This is a woman who was a victim of trafficking, who also helped to traffic other women, and now is a part of of trying to help rescue and free people from the just scary, horrific lifestyle of trafficking. And she educated me that there's so much we don't know about this. And I was having a conversation with someone that's really close to us that I would not expose today. And it took me about 20 to 30 minutes to get this person to stop saying, but how could you want to go back? Like after you have already been, you see your family members, you should just run. But actually the mental abuse and the level of skill that these individuals have to be able to get into the minds of these young women, especially. Also, when they tell you that they're going to kill your family and they show you pictures and they show you addresses of your grandmama's house, right? And they show themselves standing next to your father in the grocery store and your dad doesn't even know that person, who that person is, right? He doesn't even know he's standing next to the person who is threatening to kill him, right? When they show you that type of stuff, a lot of folks feel like they feel afraid and they begin to believe that their decisions could disrupt the lives of the people around them and could really be harming other people. And so it's a real dangerous place. There's been a lot of incidents where people have been talking Tisha Campbell. Folks just tried to destroy Tisha Campbell for coming out and explaining the incident that happened where she felt like some men pulled up to a hotel and were trying to get her in a van. The radio host, Egypt, she also was talking about an incident that happened at a gas station. And for some reason, we are quick not to believe people who have never been, like, I don't know Tisha Campbell to be some liar that just makes up stories about an incident.
It's just crazy. I don't understand this shit. Like, why would people lie about shit that's detrimental to them? Like, it's just the weirdest.
Like, I just don't know. I mean, what history why does Tisha Campbell does not need press? Like, she just doesn't, but it's just a lot, but hey, whatever. Anyway, I believe her. I believe Egypt. I believe that these things have happened. And more than that, I saw it with my own eyes going down just days ago. And the way in which this whole thing unfolded, it told me that I even have to be a lot more careful about my surroundings and my safety. So I just wanted to drop that on you. You talked about health and people taking care of themselves. And I saw that Equinox had signs up that said, we don't speak January. So they did not take any new members during January because they said, this is not the time to run to the gym. You are spending money you may not be able to maintain. They got to start contracts, break contracts, come back, sue you for not sue you, but whatever they do to get their money when you cut off the card and stop paying your membership. Then you've got gyms packed where people who are really in their process, they in their bag, they really working out. They can't even get on machines because the gym is full of folks that's walking around, just getting on stuff, playing around that are not really committed. And so they said January, they don't speak that language. You need to start at a time that's after the euphoria of a new year when you really, really, truly are committed to the process of health and and your wellness. So I don't know if I agree. Some ways I think some people are like, if you don't catch them when they are feeling it, they may never get back into it. But then I also understand that, you want to make sure that I think it's actually, somewhat might look at it as being responsible for a business to say, hey, let's take a step back from a New Year's resolution and really think about what a new mind means. So Equinox did that.
Well, listen, I agree, man, because people don't want to waste their time. They probably, I know they probably get a lot of new admissions and they get some money, but just the process of, like you said, of them having to, after you try to break the contract and you change the card, the money they lose probably doesn't even make up for it. The inconvenience, you overcrowd the gym for weeks, the people that normally come there are not comfortable. Like, they want to create, when you go to a gym, it's like, it's a sanctuary, right? It's for your mind. So you want your gym to be, it's like a home. It's like a second home, actually. It's a place that you go, you there's a level of comfortability, normalcy. You see the same people, or you see a couple of new people here and there, and they integrate them into the process, into, the gym world and the gym family. But when it's overloaded and people just come in for a couple of weeks, it takes away that passion that those who really, really want to do have. So I'm all for it. Being a gym rat, being someone who goes to the gym, I understand, how a gym needs to create this level of people who are passionate about it, because that's what the world is. So shout out to Equinox for that. We don't speak January. I appreciate
it. That's funny. That is so funny. Oh shoot, what was the next thing? Oh, okay. Well, obviously, the House of Representatives and the government, the federal government, they don't speak January either. They speak late January because they were supposed to elect a speaker at the very, very top of the month, and it didn't happen for several days. I mean, I kind of feel like, I think it was January 6th. I think it was January 6th late night. It was either the 5th late night or late night on the 6th that they were able to elect McCarthy as the Speaker of the House. And I tell you, it's interesting because January 6th is like, I don't know, like I'm still trying to figure out at what point something is going to happen other than some random people who were there. It's like the random people, yes, they need to be arrested or held accountable. Let's use the words held accountable. Mm-hmm. So TT and Boo Boo them who's selling drugs on the street corners, yes, they have to be held accountable. They are the ones that are terrorizing communities. They shooting at night. They are, making grandmothers feel unsafe and all of that. But the goal should always be to find out who got TT, Boo Boo, and them on the street. Like that should be the goal. Yes, there should be work into that. And what we always say is we want to find ways to make sure that the resources TT and Boo Boo need, so they don't even ever have to go in the direction of being on the streets, right? That we figure that out. And that's a whole separate side of the conversation. But where there is a comparison, right, is that because unfortunately the people who committed an insurrection on January 6th, and the reason why I say there's that comparison is it doesn't exist in this sense, that they want things for our society that would pretty much oppress others and would take us back further than we're already sliding to a time where the power was literally only in the hands of the rich, the successful, and the white, right? That is what they want. That's what they're calling for. That's what they're fighting for. That's what the insurrection was all about, right? So you can't give them anything that's going to make them happy or that is going to solve this problem. You can give Pookie and TT and Boo Boo them some stuff that'll get them off the streets and hopefully help them with a life of prosperity, right? But you can't give these people anything to help them or to calm their concerns, because a part of their
you can give them some. You can give them some, but you can't give them that. Like you could just give them the country. Just tell them they can do what they want.
Right, because it doesn't hurt anybody to ensure that our brothers and sisters have resources, but it will harm other individuals to provide full reign for these crazy people to lead our free world, right? That's problematic. So when I think about the context of all of that, what we know is that the comparison does come together when you start thinking about who is who is inciting the behavior that of the people running up the walls, or
it's like a RICO charge. Why they don't got a RICO charge? There's a further in it's supposed to be a RICO. There's a kingpin. Who's the kingpin?
That's a fact.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
That's what it is. We're trying to find. Nobody is really trying to find a kingpin because we know who the kingpin is, and nobody really wants to dive into that. And I don't understand why. When we've seen who said, go take back your country. We've seen who incited this, right? We've seen the major players who caused this real insurrection. And the low-hanging fruit is simple to just get the dealers. But just like in America, most of the time they'll get the dealers, but they don't want to get the kingpins because they're benefiting off the kingpins. Those kingpins are selling billions of dollars worth of drugs that are funding certain things, and that's a part of this system. So they've allowed those kingpins. Those kingpins actually work for the government. So they don't stop the government people who are making money and they're utilizing these millions and billions of dollars to do certain things. So they'll grab Pookie off the corner, who was the last stop, who got the last little the remnants of the drugs that they couldn't sell nowhere else, that wasn't as pure enough for them to sell all around this world. So that's what we are when we look at this insurrection situation. Everybody knows where it comes from. We know who the kingpin is. We know who the major distributor is. We know who the person who called for it, and we know who the major players are. And until we really get to that, we're wasting our time.
It's nothing else to be said. That's my point, is that we should be looking for the big fish. And that, the commission did that, and they, came forward to say that, okay, we pretty much have pinpointed Donald Trump's role, Rudy Giuliani's role, but there's still been no arrest. So, that is what it is. But I just thought that, it's important to note that as we were in this delay of 15 votes in order to get a speaker confirmed, which, by the way, and also, of course, we have to make sure that we acknowledge that for the first time in history, a Black man, Hakeem Jeffries from Brooklyn, that we know well and can roll up on in the streets, is the leader of the Democratic Party. And that is good because, from a symbolic perspective, that is extremely important because it shows some of our progress. However, we do have fundamental issues with Hakeem about his voting record and his position, especially on the issue of us being able to fight incumbents, which are people who are sitting in positions across the country and they've been there forever, and their way of thinking and approaching government is I want to say warped, but it's just old. It's just archaic. It's just an old mindset that needs to change. And we do, and he has issues with progressives, and I got some issues with some progressives, but I do, I think we can push Hakeem on a lot of issues because we know him and we know how to have conversations with him. And so having him sit at the head of the Democratic Party is important, but he will not budge, move, or do anything if we're not organized as a people. We have to constantly remind him where he comes from, his background, his history of fighting against police brutality, of being in the street and organizing with Black and brown folks for marginalized communities. And we got to keep on him about that. At the same time, the speaker in a different role is the head of, Nancy Pelosi was the speaker, and she was, of course, she was the leader of the Democratic Party. But now you have a majority of Republicans in Congress, and therefore you will now have McCarthy as the head, as the speaker, which is a lot of power. Problem with that is he had to make a lot of concessions. That's what those 15 votes were about. We went 15 rounds to get a speaker because they wanted concessions. They wanted him to agree to a number of things that actually is the same thing as what we talked about, trying to give those people who were running up and down the sides of the wall of the Capitol things that they want, in order for them to feel like they're in the America that they dream of, the America they want to go back to. And so it's going to be a fight. It's a battle. And God forbid, or God bless those people who don't know how serious and significant these moments are and what's taking place right before our eyes.
Yeah, so it's definitely going to be a battle, and I just think, I was a little disappointed. And then when I started learning, because a lot of times when you don't know, you get a little frustrated. And when I looked at overall with the Democratic Party, they're starting to have a little more of a backbone, and I think that, what I've been saying a lot, that the GOP is intentional about what it is that they want, and they don't care about what they have to do to get it, and it's not always nice. It's not always kumbaya for them. They very rarely kumbaya. And I think the Democratic Party has to take that same approach. You know, it's not about kumbaya. It's about making sure that the constituents and our voters and the people who vote for us are satisfied that we're doing everything possible to do what we promised them. You know, that's what I want to see. You know, and hopefully with Hakeem Jeffries, you know, his speech, though it was symbolic, it was mainly symbolism. I'm hoping that symbolism starts to transfer into actual process and progress, and you know, and things that we need as a people and as a culture.
Yeah, you know, only one thing I wanted to drop in here. It was an incident in New York where there was a young girl who, the police officer, there was a fight and the police officer was trying to break it up, and he ended up attacking and brutalizing this young girl, punching her head, punching her face. Kids were there. They fought to try to get her freed from the grips of the officer, and it was recorded. The officer was suspended without pay, and the mayor came out quickly, Mayor Adams, and said that the officer was wrong. Yes, you got to deal with the fight, you got to deal with the kids, you got to deal with all of that. But at the end of the day, the officer had no right to beat on the young girl the way that he did. And, you know, I had people, I actually had, which, you know, F you, but there was someone I saw, and I don't know why Instagram has this new thing where anybody that tags you or shares a story, you can see it in your stories. Like, that's the most annoying thing in the world. But I happen to see a lot of people tagging me to this incident. First of all, yes, I was on vacation. And unfortunately, I know that for a lot of us, even for myself, we believe that, you know, it's like the type of work we do, there's no vacation from it. You just got to be ready to go all the time. But what I have learned from being in, I've been in this role for 30 years of my life. And I also have served other individuals. And I know it is unhealthy to work the way that we do at times. You can't even process your thought for growth. You can't even figure out what is next and what you need to be fighting for in this work when you're just constantly responding to trauma all the time and constantly engaging in massive movements, you know, fighting for change. Those things are good, but you've got to build a bench of other individuals that are going to be out there carrying the torch and continuing to work, and even coming up with new projects and things that they're doing where you could just support them if it's nothing more than a phone call, so that you can mentor them through their own process. You cannot kill yourself being on go all the time. And so being on vacation, it was difficult. It was difficult not to sit on the phone with Quila, which is Shanquella Robinson's sister, every day, the way we have been talking right before the holidays, trying to figure out what's our strategy. Even she and I had to take a break, right? So that we could come back with fresh ideas. It's difficult not to be engaged in everything that we see, but it's a discipline that I know I've had to learn. I've had to learn that a comment on everything I can't do. And that sometimes I have to actually disappear in order to be renewed and restored. And so when I saw the video of the young girl getting punched, I saw it from places with individuals that I know were going to do work. Like, they were going to get it going. I know that. I already know these people who sent it to me, the people who tagged me and shared it with me. I knew what they were going to do. But to your point, after it kept coming and coming and coming, and you know, I'm trying to not ignore it, but trying to be like, there's going to be a police violence incident before, after, during. There's going to be reasons, family problems, everything is going to still be there when you return from these 2 weeks of time that you're taking off, right? And there's so many people out there that do great work that you can jump in and support them as soon as you get back. But I kept seeing it. So I decided, let me just inquire about what's going on so I could make sure, if Until Freedom could be engaged, that there are other people on our team like you and Linda who are ready to go at all times. And then as soon as I checked into it, the officer had already been suspended without pay. What I want to say is, to your point about Hakeem's speech, was his ABC speech, where he talked about what the Democratic Party can be, which I don't agree with all of it, because there's racism that exists right there within the party. and there is sexism and a lot of other issues right within the party that has to be, if you really are going to, with a speech like that, it needs to match the reality of what is taking place. And I sat with that, right? And I was thinking about this incident with the officer. Our goal should be, to your point, to see realization of what we've been fighting for. Our goal should not be that we have to have the same exact response every time to these issues. We have to fight so much, so hard, so like to the detriment of our bodies and minds and our spirits. We should be able to see that come to realization. And when an officer attacks a young girl and then is suspended without pay, yes, there's more work to do because you got to ensure that the process continues all the way to the end to where he loses his job and potentially even is charged with assault for the abuse of a young child. So there's more work to be done. But the first step, it took hell, and it's not just Until Freedom, Tamika, Mallory. We talk about years, lineage, if you will, in this movement of passing of the baton. You have the movement that has existed in New York to change police and policing culture for so long. I think about Hazel Dukes. This is a woman who's 90 years old, who's been out there fighting to get an officer suspended without pay. Is it a lot? No, but it is different. And that is what we need to be working towards, is how we work. We work hard, but then we see results. And so I just wanted to say that, because when people are like, I saw what I was saying about FU, is somebody was like, oh, well, you ain't saying nothing. You on the internet posting cute pictures of yourself, but you're not saying anything about this girl being abused. And I'm like, we're so traumatized that we live in a space of attacking other people, even when they've done the work to make a change.
And you said a mouthful, and that.
Let me just get to this other topic, because I want to make sure that we do not miss this moment of education. I brought it up earlier talking about Dr. King's birthday, and it is obviously coming up now. In just a few days, we will be remembering Dr. King during his birthday, remembering his contributions to society. And I didn't know. I don't know where my head was under a rock. I must not have been listening, but I did not know that Stevie Wonder's Happy Birthday song, which the Black version of Happy Birthday that we sing at every birthday function, you do the first happy birthday, and then you come with happy birthday to you. Like, that's our thing, right? I did not know that song was dedicated to Dr. King for his birthday. But it wasn't just about his birthday. This is the part that is powerful. The birthday piece, yes. But it was actually after Dr. King was dead, right? So Dr. King was killed in 1968. And there was Congressman John Conyers, God rest his soul. He introduced a bill to make Dr. King's birthday a national holiday. We all know that. It took 15 years to get it done. And throughout the process, you had different elected officials that were fighting, and activists and Black folks advocating to make sure that this became a holiday. But of course, you had resistance from the other side. Actually, a Republican, Senator Ed Brooke, was the one to introduce it the last time, where it actually passed in the Senate. So it was definitely a bipartisan effort, but there certainly were more people, Republicans and conservatives and racists and otherwise, who were pushing back and resisting having Dr. King's birthday become a holiday. This is a testament, this part that I'm about to say, to how important our movements are and how important it is to have everyone play a role. One of these days in life, people will look back at Mysonne and say, wow, you created this song or this spoken word at this time that helped us to articulate our needs and or to bring attention to Sandra Bland, who's in I Don't Have the Right to Do Nothing. And you have so many different pieces that represent different parts of our experience since we have been actively leading in this movement. The reason why Stevie Wonder created this song was because he was basically using it as a clarion call to get the date passed, to get the legislation passed to make Dr. King's birthday a holiday. So he created this song as part of a movement, as part of a protest, if you will, to galvanize people to respect Dr. King, to honor Dr. King, and to support what Congressman Conyers was trying to do. And so everyone played a role. He may not have been Stevie Wonder out there pumping his fists and going to Congress, but that song gave us another rallying cry, gave us something else to join in and to help to exactly. And so, you know, when we celebrate Dr. King's birthday, we need to know this didn't just happen. It wasn't like some people just got together nice. It's 15 years, a fight, a song, and a community of determined individuals and some bipartisan support is what it took to get Dr. King's birthday solidified so that we will always remember a giant like him. So, you know, happy birthday, Dr. King, with all the love and respect. And we know that there is a model that exists that we right now have the ability to continue, which is that every single one of us, no matter your talent, no matter where you want to be in this movement, you have a role to play. And as a result of that, look at where we stand today. That's my thought of the day, is look at where we are today because some people sacrificed and we took all of our resources and put it in a pot of soup. Imagine where we could go if we continue to do that work.
Woo, look at that work, man. Put that work in, man. Shout out to Dr. King for his life as we celebrate, or as we approach his birthday, and we celebrate what it is that he's meant to our people and the evolution and the growth and just, you know, the fight for justice and equality in this country, man. We salute you, King.
Absolutely. You know, I know I'm going back, circling back, but one of the things that they did to try to stop, I want to read this from Dr. Julianne Malvo. Dr. Julianne Malvo is a historian. She's a great leader. She is a professor. She is one of the mentors of Black women scholars in this nation. If you don't know Julianne Malvo, you should learn more about her. But this is a piece that she wrote. The King holiday reflects our resilience. And this is just one piece that I want folks to know, because, you know, as people look at us, and certainly we're not trying to be or liken ourselves to Dr. King, but we would like to live up to his work. But listen to what one of the individuals who opposed the legislation, this is what he did. His name was Senator Jesse Helms. He's a Republican from North Carolina. He passed out binders full of lies about Dr. King, describing him as a communist and worse things. He sat around basically with a binder of stuff, just the same way like social media is the new binder. Dr. King is a liar, called him a communist, called him a danger to America. He said Dr. King, he said Dr. King was everything terrible. This was even in Dr. King's death. Dr. King was dead and he was still saying these horrible things and telling these horrible lies about him. And that was what he was using to try to block the holiday. So when you see people out here who are accusing folks of misappropriation of funds, they're accusing people, some people do that, but nonetheless, misappropriation of funds, lying, clout chasing, all of that on social media is the new binder that Dr. King had to deal with when he was he was already dead, but even before that, he had been titled, if you will, or had been labeled the most dangerous man in America. That binder now exists in the form of comments on social media.
And we know all too well what that is. Man. Discredit, man. You know, it's a playbook, you know, and we watched it. We've seen it. We've experienced it. We felt it. We've seen it happen to all our leaders. And the main way to discredit us is through media. You know, now that we have social media, you have people who have no knowledge, people who don't even have a face, that are able to discredit you and make claims, baseless claims that they can't prove. You know, and then we have a people who are so consumed by negativity that they just grab onto that. Because, you know, like my brother Charlemagne always says, who cares about the truth when the lie is more entertaining? You know, when the lie is entertaining and it says that somebody who does positive things is negative, and somebody could be like, wow, really? This person? And they can throw dirt on your name, and they can somehow defame you and discredit you. It leads for more story. It leads for a better story on you know, social media. People want to hear that. They don't want to hear all the positivity. They want to be able to tear you down. There's a lot of people, not all people, but there's a lot of people, man. So I just want to shout out to brothers, you know, who are doing things. You know, we weren't going to talk about it, but shout out to Meek Mill, man. Just because the negativity is always overshadowed by the positivity. The brother is
the positivity is always overshadowed by the negativity. It's the opposite.
There you go. The positivity is the negativity is always the positivity is always overshadowed by the negativity. Yes, you are right. And I stand corrected. You know, the brother started reform. He's bringing people home from jail. Christmas, he bailed out mothers who were incarcerated. He's constantly doing positive things in the community with children. You know, shout out to NBA Youngboy who started this nonviolence, you know, campaign that he's been doing, and he's actually teamed up with former people that he was beefing with to give out toys in communities. Shout out to Bobby Smurda, who came home and is intentional about being in detention centers, dealing with at-risk youth, people who are incarcerated, young youth who are incarcerated, who don't have, you know, role models and who don't have positive influences. And these people are doing this work, and I know they're doing this work, and it's not publicized as it should be. You know, it's always the negativity that gets highlighted when they get into an argument, discredit, you know, and all these sites want to go to that.
When they're human, when they do human
exactly.
Things.
But and I know we're human, but I want to give the credibility, and I want to give the positivity some light, because they're definitely doing positive things. You know, in the situation that just happened with Meek, you know, I spoke to him, and he talked about how it could have been ugly. You know, everybody's drinking. He's arguing about the fight. He's talking about how Tank is gonna win, and the guy and him got into some words, and he was there with a bunch of his friends, and cooler. And he said to himself, I'm not gonna allow this to turn into more than that. Yeah, there was back and forth. And he knew a bunch of his friends, some of them who have higher tempers. They don't have as much to lose. And what he did was immediately leave. He said, let's go. He said, I was in there, a bunch of my friends, and we left it without incident. And, you know, and rather than being praised for that, we're always going to be the part that there's the argument, there was this and that. No, praise the man, because he was able to de-escalate. He separated himself from a situation that could have been drastic, you know? So I want to applaud that. I want to start highlight, because we always call out coward culture, and I call out the negativity of our Black brothers, because I want us to hold ourselves accountable, but I also want to highlight when we do positive things. So I want to make sure that those brothers understand that we see you, and we love that you are taking that role. We love that you are evolving. We love that you are recognizing that you have the power to de-escalate. You have the power to do something better. You are walking into that power. That's what gangster is to me. So those brothers right there that I just described, those are what I call gangsters, and I want to salute them.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I have nothing more to add. I appreciate what you just said. And I think we, you know, and I've even had to learn that in our human moments that, you know, you got to make good decisions. You got to make decisions that, especially when you're drinking and you out. But I'm going to be honest with you, Mysonne, as I was watching the incident, yes, I know those things could turn into violence. It could turn into a bigger thing. It could turn into something that goes on next week, or your camp could get into a fight. But I've been my whole life since I was a little girl, especially coming up in the South, you know, being with my family members in the house. Whenever there's a sports event or something that is tense, I've seen the men get into big arguments and maybe even start scuffling where people got to be like, get relaxed, like y'all are doing too much. So for us, we're used to seeing these types of things and the energy, and everybody starts getting into it.
That testosterone starts going around. Yeah, that testosterone starts moving around.
I always say that. But, you know, but when the media gets involved, to your point, they're going to stretch it for their content, their clicks and their likes. When the truth is, generally, those incidents end exactly as it did. People calmed down, other people got involved, say, listen, relax, turn down, and then, you know, people get to go home safe. So, you know, I'm just saying it don't really get us as rattled as it does some people, because we used to seeing folks get super aggressive around sports events, especially.
Yeah, so. No, it doesn't get me rattled. It's just that I know that the media has a way to perpetuate things, right? Absolutely. And I know in those situations, when there's a lot of people, you're in the front row of a fight, and you're somebody, and he's somebody, and then you have entourages, nobody wants to really lose, right? Yeah. So when those things is publicized and publicly, somebody gets beat or hit, you know, there turns into the next level of gunplay. It's not like it used to be. You know, people used to have a fight, and you go on, and there's energy, but right now, everything is super hype, you know, super hyped up. So, you know, I'm glad that cooler heads prevailed, and I want to salute Meek for having that foresight, because there was times that he didn't, you know what I'm saying, in his growth, and you see the growth. You see the growth from the Safari situation to now. You see, and let's promote that, man. Let's celebrate that. Let's say, yo, brother, we appreciate you. You know, you're doing what's supposed to be done in this culture, man. So that's that.
All right, well, you've got a guest coming up today, someone that you booked to be on the show, who has a impactful story himself. And then on top of his story being so impactful, he also is now doing something for some other individuals that really need help. So let's welcome them to Street Politicians.
So today we have a special guest. This brother was convicted of a crime, wrongfully convicted of a crime, then exonerated, and then went on to become a lawyer. I heard of his story from my brother Shaka, our brother, Tamika Shaka Senghor, and he said, you got to meet this brother, and we had a good conversation. And this brother is very, very passionate, you know, reminds me a lot of myself. You know, after being wrongfully convicted, you come home and you have this will and this drive to just want to do better. And this brother is just that. His name is Jarrett Adams. How you doing today, King?
I'm doing well. Thank you both for having me on. Been big fans of you all for quite some time. And I'm just appreciative to have this platform to talk about my clients and their story.
Before we get into clients, you know, give a little bit. So you were wrongfully convicted of a crime. What was this crime? What was the process of you going about getting exonerated and then coming to actually become an attorney?
Yeah. Well, I was falsely accused of a rape at the age of 17 years old. A lot of it had to do with race. You know, simply put, you know, my accuser was a white girl. My mom didn't have any money to afford an attorney. And I sat and I watched what I thought I knew about the justice system, you know, totally, you know, crumble down to the reality of what the criminal justice system really is. I got to prison turning 18 years old, and all I had was an high school education. So I knew I needed to find a way to be able to communicate my innocence, because at the time I didn't know how. I started to do the same thing that a lot of brothers do when they get in this situation, and I started to fight for myself. I educated myself through having aunties, you know, who mailed me case law, to reading in the paper about attorneys and reaching out to them, asking questions. And eventually the Wisconsin Innocence Project took my case, litigated my case all the way up to the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals, where my conviction was unanimously reversed. My record was ultimately expunged, and I came home and started the healing process with therapy. Then I was able to go ahead and get my associate's degree, bachelor's degree, law degree, and I clerked in the same circuit that overturned my conviction before I started to work for the Innocence Project.
That's incredible, just the storyline. It sounds like a movie. You know, it's like if we didn't know and see you here as a living, breathing person, it would be, you know, a great story and story of triumph for TV. And we know that art often imitates life. So much of what we see as depictions on the screen are things that are actually happening to so many people, and particularly Black people, and then even more specifically, Black men. And the issue of rape and the issue of the Black male put in the position of being called a rapist by white women is a very, very significant issue. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What was the story? What happened? And then again, I know you're kind of going over the same thing, but then what was the process of exoneration from something that serious? Like what did the Wisconsin Innocence Project hear and see in your story that made them want to take your case?
So I told the complete beginning from the end in my book that I have out, Redeeming Justice. But the best way to get to it was this. If you could think about what happened with Emmett Till, that's exactly what happened to me and my two friends. We were invited to a party where a consensual encounter took place, and there was a false accusation that bore out of it. We didn't find out until like months later. And when we got to face these charges, the narrative had totally changed into what we normally see the historical depiction of Black men are. We're ravagers, savagers, and it was basically like we were guilty and had to prove our innocence. The truth is, we went to this party, we were invited up. This young lady invited us into a room, her roommate walked in on this encounter, and from that started these false accusations that grew into a narrative. Still, I have no idea where they came up and created this stuff from. So we're now faced with 17 years old. None of us have ever been in any trouble with the law at all. And so our attorneys are telling us strategy that we can only have to hope was true, but it wasn't. This case was tried on race, and it had absolutely no evidence besides the accusation. And then what we come to find out is the police withheld a statement from a college student that undermined the entire accusations, and he corroborated our version of events. That statement was never turned over to us during trial. So that's what the Innocence Project was able to obtain, which resulted in us being exonerated.
Wow. I asked about that, the Innocence Project piece, because so many people contact us, claiming their innocence. They're advocating for themselves, and they're looking for organizations, groups, and otherwise to pick up their stories, especially the project. I think I get the most calls asking, can I connect somebody within the Innocence Project to, so many, especially brothers. I don't often, which I think is also pretty scary, we don't really hear from women as much who are in prison, understanding that Black women are the fastest growing population in prison. We don't really hear much from women saying, can you help me get my sentence overturned, right? But we hear it from our brothers all the time. What did you say to the Innocence Project? What did that look like? And because I would imagine that because they took your case, it's one of the things that encouraged you to work on the two individuals that you're going to talk about today.
Yeah, and to your point, Tamika, listen, women are the fastest growing because of the numbers of Black men that they've been going through at a rate of like Pac-Man, right? And the thing about it is I actually represent, some women, and I'm investigating their cases and claims of actual innocence as well. The horrible thing about women and wrongful convictions is that oftentimes women who are wrongfully convicted, they are wrongfully convicted of not like heinous murders, but of actual deaths of their own kids, which is even more traumatic to think about. The science hadn't caught up to shaken baby syndrome, right?
Wow.
And so, if the science is off and you're accusing mothers of wrongdoing, well, who do you think bared the brunt of those accusations before the science caught up? It was Black women. It was women of color. And so it most certainly is an issue. And I wanted to just touch that before I go on to answer. And what I did was this. First, let me say this. I had some praying folks on my side. Like my mother and my aunts would not allow my spirit to dissipate. And so because of them, I was able to just live each and every day like I was preparing to come home the next day. So I started to write as many people as I could, and I started to go through case law and articulate my case with the case that was, in the news or the hottest topic. And eventually I was able to get the help that way. It's one of these things where You should ask for help. You should seek help, but you should also be helping yourself by educating yourself as much as possible. The Innocence Project is an organization no different than the one that I built called Life After Justice, where we can only take so many cases, right? With 2-point-something million people incarcerated, if only we had 2% of those wrongfully convicted, that leaves thousands of people who are wrongfully convicted, and the money ain't in this work. Tamika, my son, you know what I'm saying when I say that. The money ain't in this type of work where you're advocating and where you're taking on cases for free. These cases can go on for 5 to 7 years at $100,000+, each case. And so it's not easy. So when people are looking for help and they're just not getting the responses from organizations like the Innocence Project, it doesn't mean that your case is bad. It doesn't mean that they want to help. It's just the reality that the resources are not here. The laws do not support people post-conviction because most of the people claiming flaws in their post-conviction look like us on this Zoom right now.
Wow, that's powerful. So now let's get to the case that you are now. When you explained it to me, it was mind-boggling. I didn't even understand how legal, being formerly incarcerated, understanding, just understanding the law and just understanding what I know the law to be. What you were saying to me just really didn't even make sense. So I just want you to give us a little understanding about the case we're here talking about today.
So I'll do my best, because when you try to make some sense out of something that's senseless, it just don't make sense. But here's the story of Terrence and Farron, not guilty serving life. These are two young men born, raised in the Waverly, Virginia area. There's an officer who shot and killed around 10:45, 11 a.m. As they always do, there's a rush to judgment and a roundup of nothing more than what I can call a roundup of young Black men between the areas of Waverly all the way up to Richmond, of a description that does not fit and never fit Terrence and Farron's description. This officer is shot. The police immediately get there. He gives a description. They start to go out looking for people, when all along they knew who the eyewitness, the only eyewitness, had identified was not Terrence and Farron. That part of their case was buried. It was buried. No investigative journalists asked questions. And down in this town in Waverly, which is one of the last known towns to ever do an open lynching, it was as quiet as an injustice could ever be. These guys are, get this, they're accused of killing a cop. Two Black guys accused of killing a white cop. And they ultimately, trying to avoid the death penalty, plead guilty to accessory after the fact, time served. And the other pleaded guilty to manslaughter, thinking that if they did this, they would be avoiding the death penalty. I'll pause and say this. There was a time where we never believed that anyone would plead guilty to anything that they didn't do. But with the Sister Ava DuVernay and the Central Park 5 case, we've now become educated that people are put in situations where if they're trying to save their life and the lives of their families, they will make decisions that we sitting on our couch cannot understand. That is exactly what happened with Terrence and Farron. So now the family of the officer they're mad, and they're going to the Department of Justice and they're asking the Department of Justice to right a wrong, because they believe that the people they were told that were responsible for the death of their son, the officer Alan Gibson, they believe that they got off too light. But the true reality is that it wasn't them. And that's why the prosecutor gave them the deals that they gave. They ended up being investigated by the feds during 8 months, 8 months after the entry of a guilty plea. The feds send down a team of undercover agents to do controlled buys of people in and around this town. With those people that they were able to get controlled buys on, they used them to bring a federal case and say that the death of Officer Gibson was the result of Terrence and Ferran being drug kingpins for 10 years, and that's how the death happened as a furtherance of the drug conspiracy. They ended up being tried in federal court for the same murder that they pled guilty to, trying to avoid the death penalty. They're now facing the death penalty in federal court for this same murder, and it's wrapped in a drug conspiracy that has no drugs, no proceeds from drugs, no photos, no recorded conversations, no baby mamas with houses, no chains, no gold teeth. If I told somebody that I had a baby, you would expect to see rattles and strollers and stuff like that. So if you say someone has been dealing drugs for 10 years, you would expect to see proceeds, drug paraphernalia, something. Absolutely no evidence at all. They bring forth this case. And again, this is as quiet as an injustice as you'll ever hear, because something like a cop being killed is normally national news. But the reason why it wasn't was because they knew that these guys had nothing to do with it. And so did the jury, who ultimately found these guys not guilty of the murder, but found them guilty of one drug count. Now, I can go on and tell you my opinion of why I think the jury found them guilty of that one drug count. But to bring it to where everybody can understand, think about the neighborhoods we grew up in. Think about how you see a federal sweep come through, and they picked up guys that you know good and well are living on their mama's couch, don't have any money, nowhere near a big-time drug dealer, but they've charged them with the kingpin statute amongst a group of other people. That's exactly what they did to Terrence and Ferran, with absolutely no evidence. So now these guys are now found guilty of this one single drug count. This one drug count would have resulted in 120 months to 200 at most, depending on the calculation of the drugs and the amount that they were alleged to have sold, using what is nothing more than illegal lynching. Is a case called U.S. versus Watts, where the court, despite the jury finding them not guilty, used the accusation of them being involved with the cop's murder in the state court guilty pleas to enhance their sentence to life in prison. So essentially, they robbed due process and said, we don't care what the jury says, we think they did it, here goes your life sentence. And they've now been in federal prison for the last 25 plus years.
That's just unbelievable. Just listening to that, like when you told me that before, you know, it didn't make sense. And the more you say it, it makes less and less and less sense.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the process now? What have you been doing, you know, to try to write? Because, you know, when I spoke to you, you told me how you really started investing your own money in this. This was something, you looked at the injustice and you were so passionate about getting these brothers home that you started doing things that made it personal for you.
I'll tell you this. So how I got involved with this case, I'm doing a speaking event at the Virginia Sheriff's Association where brothers and sisters are getting their rights restored back to vote after completing and discharging a sentence. And at the end, you know, it was a lady who was standing in the line. She was at least about 8 people back. But what stood out to her, for me, was if you could see the wrinkles and creases of anguish on her forehead as she's making her way up to me, it reminded me of my mother. And I can remember being in the courtroom, and I'm raised by all women. So to be accused of something, of a rape, and my mother and my aunts are hearing this, I would often turn around and look at them just to reassure them they know who they raised. This ain't true. And the wrinkles and creases of forehead on their forehead, I will never forget it. And when I saw this woman approaching me, it made me stop. And I said, I gotta find out what she wants. So she gave me a manila envelope, and it was Ferran's aunt, Mary Claiborne. And I started to read the contents, and I said, I give you my word, this is all I can give you. I said, I'll look and I'll work on this case until the evidence tells me to stop. Because oftentimes, you know, you get cases and it just ain't the truth, man. People have claims of innocence and sometimes it just ain't the truth. I told her this in 2017. I've not stopped working on this case since. Every piece of money that my firm is able to bring in, I've donated a third of that to furthering the investigation of this case. I've hired former federal investigators, retired judges, prosecutors, and defense attorneys to put together a panel and say, here's what I found, you tell me if I'm wrong. Not one of them told me I was wrong. That's how sure I am about this case. And that's why I'm here today to put the messaging out, because if you could be accused of a crime, found not guilty, and still sentenced to life, well, what do we stand a chance in the system at all?
What was the sentence for the guilty plea in state court?
It was 1 year time served for Ron, right? And it was a 5-year suspended, like 3-year suspended sentence for Terrence. And this is the murder of a cop, Tamika. Like, and no one ever said, well, why did they get that? Well, we know why. Because through this investigation, I contacted the prosecutor who did the case. He says very clearly and adamantly, he never had the information that someone else was identified running away from the scene of the crime. We were able to put this stuff in front of him. We were able to file this in the court. And still the court has said to us, yeah, we hear what you're saying. And you might have a legitimate argument, but they should have brought this years ago. So therefore we don't want to hear it.
That's just crazy. So isn't usually what you would be looking for is a judge to say in the interest of justice.
Indeed. Indeed. I mean, because what we're talking about, like I said, is this. You're talking about a situation that's set up for you not to win. Post-conviction, when a person is convicted, it is designed for finality, not for justice. They are reviewing the case to see if any way they can say, good try, it's not gonna work. In a case like this, that screams actual innocence, right? Ruth Bader Ginsburg said it best in one of her written opinions. Innocence should be the gateway over all procedural barriers. And in this case, it's ridiculously flawed in that they aren't arguing with me about the innocence of these guys because the jury found them not guilty. They're not arguing with me that evidence in this case was withheld from them because they got the same record. So instead, they've decided to say, well, they should have brought it 20 years ago, so therefore we're not gonna hear it.
You said they shouldn't have brought it 20 years ago?
They should have. So basically
They
what
should
they're saying,
have.
yeah, so and I have, if folks out here looking at this, I have some YouTube videos that pretty much educate us like around post-conviction. And the way that it works is this. I would like to tell everyone that if you're innocent and you have the evidence, that's all you need. That's not the case. So post-conviction works like this. After you're convicted, you have a certain amount of time to bring arguments. I can't tell you why that is, but that's just the way that the system is set up. Some will argue that it's set up that way to give true victims the right to put closure on their case. But there's a way to do it while still preserving people's right to fight for their innocence, because there are innocent people who are there. But it's designed to keep you on the short time limit to bring these arguments. And what that does is this. It puts people who, in the criminal justice system, that 80%, if not higher, rely on public defense. It put people who, at post-conviction, couldn't afford the attorney to represent them at the initial stage even further behind, because now you need an attorney to do these challenges to the actual conviction, and they have to do it within time frames that are like a year, 2 years. And if you miss them, they literally will not hear arguments and will block you as a result. And it simply makes no sense. And then what has to happen is this. You now have to go from the court of law to the court of public opinion in order to hope that someone looks at the case, becomes disturbed enough compelled enough or politically indicted enough to do what is right. And that's what Terrence and Farron's case is. And I'll expand upon that. We made the filing to the Virginia Appellate Court asking that they be granted actual innocence. During the time, there was a Democratic Attorney General by the name of Mark Herring who was in office in Virginia. His office took a whole entire year to investigate everything that I allege. They came back, and in a 78-page filing, they agreed with us and said that Terrence and Farron should be granted their actual innocence and their convictions should be reversed. The problem is, Herring lost his seat before the actual court hearing, and a Republican, Jason Miyares, took office. And when he took office, he retracted it back, and I don't even know how you can do this, and we're arguing about this in the Virginia Supreme Court now. He retracted the support of his predecessor. And literally said, well, these guys came too late with this argument. He never said anything about they're guilty. He never said anything about this attorney general viewed the evidence in the wrong light. He simply said, these guys pled guilty. They should have brought this long ago. Don't do it.
And how, so you have the Supreme Court in Virginia.
Yes.
Is there a higher court that this can be taken to after?
It is. And so right now there's two things going on. We have a pardon clemency request on the desk of the president right now. I mean, it's there. All of the details and facts are there. And the president can sign this and either pardon them or commute their sentence at any time. The argument that we're making to the Virginia Supreme Court is that you cannot reverse course in the middle of litigation just because of a political change in climate. And that's exactly what happened in their case. So our argument to the Virginia Supreme Court is happening on the week of February 14th. And we're hoping that they order it back down to the state court to allow us the opportunity that we've never had. And that's the power to have an evidentiary hearing where we can subpoena witnesses into court and get them sworn under oath to testify as to how the evidence of an identification of another suspect that happened less than 1 hour after the officer was shot, how did it not make its hands in the prosecutors or the defense attorneys back when this case happened? And we're just praying right now. And so this is the part of the reason why I'm here, because still this case has not went national, and we're talking about the death of a police officer. Do you understand that if I had it wrong, there would be no shortage of 1,000 articles talking about this crazy Black lawyer who making this crazy argument? That's not happening because I'm right. And so I'm hoping that someone can help me push this thing over. And what it's gonna take is gonna take the attention of us, the culture, because these are two Black men who've been in there for a quarter century for something that they not only didn't do, but they were found not guilty of.
So, you know, I want to ask two more questions, and I know you got work to do, and we thank you for taking time out your busy schedule to come here. First, I want to ask, just listening to this, how many people do you think, because we see people exonerated every day, we see, you know, all of these things clearing people every day. How many people you think have been flawed by this process that you're talking about, that are actually innocent, who presented evidence and a judge has told them that they presented it too late, that's probably still sitting in prison right now? That's the first question I want to ask. And then lastly, what is it that we can do to actually help this case? Because, you know, I'm formerly incarcerated and wrongfully convicted of a crime, and I know that pain. And when you describe the mother, the wrinkles in the forehead, and you describe being in that courtroom and looking and assuring your mother and your grandmother that they raised a certain person, I remember that. I remember my grandmother being in court, and I'm looking at her, and they're talking about me. And it was one thing that one of the victims, who I supposedly robbed, said to her that gave me some, gave her understanding that it was a lie. The victim said that I got inside of his cab and I was smoking a cigarette. And my grandmother knows how much I hate cigarettes. My grandmother knew that she would put me on punishment for 2 or 3 weeks because I wouldn't even go to the store to buy her cigarettes because I didn't want her to smoke. She knows how anti I was. So the minute she heard that, she jumped up and screamed and had to be removed from the courtroom because she said, "You lying. My grandson would never smoke no cigarette. Y'all lying on my grandson." So that right there gave me some solace in knowing that she knew that what they were saying was alleged was wrong about me. But I just want you to answer those two things so that we can, let you go.
I can tell you this, the numbers are scary. They're scary. If we have, of the 2.3 million people incarcerated, we have roughly somewhere around 900,000 Black men, right? Just talking about Black men, but in women, numbers are increasing. So if you just take that and you say to yourself, if 80% of those folks are reliant on public defense, and this ain't a negative to talk about a public defender, this is to highlight how their job, they can't do it. They don't have the resources, they're overwhelmed. So I would say this, the numbers from the Innocence Project and John Grissom suggest that there's like 2 to 3% of people who are wrongfully convicted. So if they're saying it's 2 to 3%, you know that it's probably about 10%, right? Because you know that people oftentimes plead guilty for things that they didn't do. They oftentimes are advised, ill-advised, to go through a proceeding that they shouldn't go through, or wait, or whatever it is, take a plea. We know that because before bond reform, people would plead guilty because of how horrible the conditions were in county jails. So if we really wanted to do and find out the numbers, we would have to go through and each individual case. And I'm gonna tell you, I would say this, of the 2.3 million, I would say somewhere around 25 to 30% of people who encounter the criminal justice system are either wrongfully convicted, pled because they just wanted it over with, and or didn't have the resources to put up their defense. And so again, they just waved the white flag to get it resolved. This is a culture thing. This is where you have 90-something% of prosecutors being white men, and they go on oftentimes to become judges, and then they're handling cases in the cities like Chicago, Baltimore, where it's a revolving door of young Black men that are coming before them. They start to become desensitized, and they just get rid of cases, get rid of cases, get rid of cases. And that's what I'm saying. The numbers, if we peel back the onion, it would terrify us how many people are wrongfully convicted or pled guilty to something that they did not do.
So tell us what you want us to do to help. How can we help? How can people sitting watching this interview help? Like, what is the process?
Here's how I think folks can help. I think we all need to become educated about these issues. And what I mean by that is the issues that directly affect us in our community, they're more than just the legal conundrums. They are intertwined with the problem that we still face and deal with in society, and that is race, that is prejudice. We have a system that you cannot just keep changing the faucet. You have to rip up the floor and change the pipes in order for it to work. So what we have to do is case by case, the most egregious to start with. We have to unify as a culture behind these cases and not just do it at the conclusion of the case. We have to do it all the way until there becomes legislation that prevents this type of stuff from happening. As a result of the Central Park 5 case, you can now no longer interrogate kids without an adult. When it comes to Terrence and Ron's case, we need to demand that the court stops robbing due process of its power, specifically at a high rate to Black men, when they're sentencing people and they are using what's called relevant conduct, which is nothing more than accusations by the government, and they're using it to enhance brother's sentence to life. So what we have to do is, in my opinion, visit the website, Not Guilty Serving Life. Look at the YouTube. It tells you how to obtain a pro bono attorney. It tells you, the things that you need to look for when you're evaluating these cases. And more importantly, we need to sign this petition for Terrence and for Ron, and we need to eradicate the use of relevant conduct. I'm telling you, if you look at the numbers, they ain't doing it to nobody but us, y'all. That's who relevant conduct is being used against.
Yeah, no, it sounds, I mean, you say it's so articulate and it's like wrapped up in a bow and it's clear, even though it's senseless. But there are so many, as I said earlier, brothers, family members that we meet that are explaining the exact same thing you're saying. They just may not be as articulate and able to describe it in depth, right? Mm-hmm. But they know what's happening, not just to themselves, but to other brothers who are locked up right next to them in jails all across this nation, in prisons across this nation, federally and locally. Right. And we know that the crime of unjustly convicting men of color, and particularly, again, Black men, is big business. People are making money off of this. And so therefore, why would a system, I had a family member tell me one day when we were talking about the campaign to close Rikers Island in New York City, and that this particular family member is a correction officer, has now retired, but was there in the system for many years. And when I was saying, and this was just a conversation 2 years ago, I was saying, they got to close the jail because too many people are dying, which, by the way, since that conversation 2 years ago, we've had tremendous death. People continuing. Wow. Since for the last few years. And so she says to me, well, where am I going to work? Where will we get jobs? And it took a while for her to sit with and process and come back to me and say, damn, because she is an advocate, right? She does believe in this justice in the system. She is one of those, or was an officer who tried to help incarcerated individuals. So she didn't realize how institutionalized she was, that this is business. This is about money. So if you close the prison, or if you allow those people who have not committed crimes, those people who are innocent, to go home, then where are you going to get the resources to keep this business operating that keeps phone operators on the DMV system in some states, that makes police uniforms, car parts, and moreover, that provides jobs and also contracts for so many, including what is the R-Mark, making the uniforms and the food. I mean, there's so much business coming out of prisons, and we are the collateral. And the interesting thing about it is I sit and I listen to you, and then also just coming off of a time of Kwanzaa, and, we're just coming off of a time when we should be reflecting, right? We've always been a part of the chattel slavery, right, mentality. And this is what continues to happen today. In fact, even the invasion of our land in Africa was all about currency. It was all about using Black bodies to build and to be the currency and the foundation of white wealth. And of the power structure of the American government, but there were other governments prior to this who have taken advantage of us. And so, I agree with you that we've got to educate ourselves. We've got to be educated outside of Pookie shouldn't be locked up. We've got to know why Pookie is locked up and what the system looks like and where that comes from. So, that's my soapbox for the day. Thank you for listening to my TED Talk. But no, that was solid. I appreciate you coming and, and sharing with us this story of these two brothers, Terrence and Farron, who need to be freed. It's very clear. And I think that even though I don't know you well, I believe just from Shaka being our brother, listening to you today, that you wouldn't even be involved in this situation if you did not know 100% that these brothers should be free. And that's enough for me to feel like we should do all that we can to help advocate for you. And the last thing I will say is that the clemency piece is important, right? there was so much drama. My son and I have been involved in Instagram and well, my son does Twitter. I wouldn't open Twitter. Well, every time I open it, I'm traumatized. But just the smell of Twitter or someone saying it makes me sick. But we've been involved in these online wars about Brittany Griner coming home. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we have had to say to those, even our own brothers and sisters that questioned Brittany's return and how she was, the trade that was done in order to get her freed, is, people, basically what I've had to say is that we as Black women have done business with the Biden administration, mm-hmm. right? We voted for this administration 94+% and have continuously bailed out the Democrats from Warnock twice, maybe even more than that, because somewhere they told me Warnock, this is his 5th election. I don't know when that happened, but nonetheless, there's been at least 2 big runoff situations that we have had to go into Georgia from the activist level to Black women and men voting for that candidate. And there's been so many races around the country. So we deserved Brittany Griner to get free because we said so. So the pardon or sentence commutation that you're talking about, we also should be demanding that in the same way. It is not to say Brittany shouldn't be free. What it does mean, though, is because we did business with the administration and we see that it works, we know there's a presidential election coming up, then we ought to be exploiting that relationship the same way that they're trying to exploit us. We should be doing the same thing because this is about American business. And I think that's the mindset. The mind frame is, how do we use the Griner model that they knew they could not leave a Black woman in jail or in Russia and then still win elections and come to us demanding stuff. They knew they couldn't do that. And we need to be demanding the same on the other side and with other issues. And so, I think that that's got to be the message that we're sharing with our brothers and sisters who are in community that need to, be activated to help with what you have going on.
And I hold, look, you said that so well. I'm just piggybacking at this point. We got to get something for our support. And this, to go to your point, I just talked with Farron's dad, and he was like, look, why hasn't the Black Caucus in Virginia come and supported you? He like, man, every time I go there, he remind me of like my grandfather, he tried to roll up a couple of dollars and stick it in my hand. I'm like, look, thank you, Dad. But like, man, we got it, man. He like, but I don't understand why they ain't helped you. And I'll just say this is a family, historically, years, all of their life, they've been told, go in that booth, punch blue. Don't matter who behind it.
That's right.
Told their grandkids, told all of their friends. And they done that. And now here they are, right? They had the support of a Democratic Attorney General who said they're innocent, they should be out. A Republican comes in and said, I don't care if they're innocent, I'm gonna leave them in just because I don't like the Democrat who wanted them out. Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, this one on y'all. We need you. Terrence and Farron need you. You don't have to exchange nothing at all. Just sign the pardon and commute their sentence today. They deserve it.
Thank you, brother.
We want to say, I just want to ask one more simple question.
Yes, sir.
How long were you incarcerated before you were exonerated?
So I did 10 years in prison. I did almost 10 years in prison. I was a baby, man. I was a baby. And I sat there and I expected the same results in my case, because I know we ain't do nothing, that I would see on Law and Order growing up as a kid. And I come from a very rough neighborhood in Chicago, but my grandmother was even rougher. She ain't play that, right? And so we stayed out the way. So when this allegation against me came, my family knew what time it was, but they also knew this. They also knew that I didn't know what I was up against because they had kept me on the porch all my life, right? So when this happened, they knew what was about to happen. I didn't know. I thought all I had to be was innocent and that was enough. So when I went through this for those 10 years and I'm writing all these people and I come home and you ever came home and been introduced to your niece or your nephew? You know how difficult that is? You know how many brothers come home and they got to look through picture albums. I'm looking through a picture album one day and I'm flipping through the pictures. My baby pictures, 8th grade, high school. I don't see another picture for 10 years later in that album. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I know exactly what it's like.
Wow.
Well, I want to. That's heartfelt and passionate, and you know, I definitely understand that. I felt that. So I just want to say thank you for the work that you're doing, and whatever we can do, you know, as individuals, as you know, this podcast, as our organization, whatever we can do, we definitely are here for you. Now you're one of our friends. That's a going, you know, joke we say. Everybody here is our friend, and you know, you definitely are now one of our friends. So please make sure that you utilize us in whatever situation that you have, man, and continue to do the work, because it's God's work that you're doing. You know, sometimes we turn our pain into our purpose and our passion, man, and that's what I see that you've done. So we salute you, man.
I appreciate you. And the same applies here as well. Look, there are a lot of people who jump on and give you their version of what the law is and stuff like that. I promise, if you guys ever send me an email with a question from the fan base who wants to know a true, legally supported answer to what's going on in court and out, I got y'all.
Attorney Jarrett Adams, thank you so much for joining Street Politicians. We appreciate you. Such an insightful interview today. And, you know, you certainly, as my son said, can utilize us and count on us for our support.
Thank you, guys. Continue to do what you're doing. We need y'all voice. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know if you say good interview, because even though he's great in terms of how he explains it, and you said it right, that he has a lot of passion, you know, clearly his own circumstances. It was a great question that you asked about how long he had been in prison, because for some reason in my mind, I thought maybe 2 years or 3 years, but 10 years, that's a long time, you know, to have served. And it's so many people. It's just such a sad thing that it's not just sad, it's maddening. You know, it's a crime, it's inhumanity, it's so many things. The amount of people who had his story, who 10 years would have been a cakewalk for them in terms of what they are doing now, 30, 40 years, you know, and, you know, all the people that we do see coming home. I just, you know, something in my spirit wants to say that, or wants to use this as a moment to remember the late, great Kenneth Thompson, our dear sister LuShawn Thompson's husband. He was the district attorney in Brooklyn. And even though we didn't always agree on different issues, one thing we always appreciated about Ken Thompson was his thirst for freedom and for exoneration. From the day he took office until he died, he was getting people free. And the good people like him, just, I don't know what happens. It's like they don't live long. You know, that was his big thirst and passion, was to get people free. He is known for exonerating so many, especially brothers, of course, of different Black backgrounds also in Brooklyn. After his predecessor had a whole lot of people locked up for crimes they didn't commit. So, you know, I want to see the work of Jarrett, Attorney Adams, and the Innocence Project, and Brian Stevenson, and, you know, so many who do that work every day, that work would just be multiplied.
Definitely, man. Just hearing him, he reminded me so much of myself and the passion that I have for just, you know, saving our people and just playing your part. You know, after you've been incarcerated, especially wrongfully accused and incarcerated, you have this passion to want to make sure it doesn't happen again, you know? So he utilized his time. You know, he didn't allow the time to do him. He did the time and he educated himself. And now he's able to serve to make sure that what happened to him doesn't happen to anybody else. So once again, I want to say thank you to him, and thank you to my brother Shaka for saying you need to meet this guy and you guys need to talk to him. So shout out to both of them.
Shaka,
that brings me to my I don't get it. You know, it's been a little time, but I didn't really hear anybody talk much about this whole Skip Bayless and Damar Hamlin situation. I don't get how it was pretty much just glossed over. You know, and I you know, a lot of people say, oh, you always want to race bait. It's not so much race baiting for me. It's just understanding the dynamics that Black people have to do. I watched Kyrie get hammered about a situation that something that he didn't even say, you know, something reposed. I watch Black athletes. I watch Black, you know, entertainers. I watch Black people, period, who have platforms be hammered about things that they say or things that they're even attached to. And to watch Skip Bayless make that tweet, which was so insensitive, while a man was on the field being resuscitated, being brought back to life, whose heart damn near stopped on the field, and him talking about just play the game, you know, and knowing that if a Black man had said that same thing, there would have been consequences and repercussions. I just don't get how we continue to allow things like that. I don't understand how the world wasn't way, way more critical. You know, I didn't hear any direct apology come from just, you know, the network, people that he worked with. I didn't see any consequences. There wasn't no suspension. There wasn't no, maybe a couple of days off. You know, based on what he said, we understand how it affected the family, the community, the fans of football, you know, and it did. It hurt a lot of people. A lot of people, like, you know what I said, people were harmed, you know, and I didn't see any consequences for it. And I just don't get that. I don't get why it's so clear that there is bias in America in everything that has to do with, you know, Black and white and people of color and white people who are in the same positions, but yet we act like it's not, you know, and we even, as Black people, we normalize, right? We've normalized the fact that white people can say things and get away with things that we can't, and we just call it, you know, business as usual, you know. And I think just looking at that situation, and then his response, you know, as Shannon Sharp, you know, would hope that he would take the tweet down, and the insensitivity of him saying he's not going to take it down because he meant what he said, you know, just standing firm, wrong and strong. And to know that you can still go see that tweet and you can see that a man was way more interested in the game continuing than an actual person who was fighting for his life, you know, and him to stand by that, and the people that he worked for, you know, in an organization. Speaking about an organization, why the NFL didn't see that call on him to do something. You know, it's just so many different aspects, you know, that I really just don't get. But, you know, I do get it, but I don't get it. You know, and I just, it bothers me. It bothers me that our lives, you know, are not taken serious. It's not valued as much as everybody else's. So I'm always going to say something about it. And people are going to be, oh, you want to, right? No, I want to tell the truth. I don't have a problem telling the truth, and I don't care what comes with the truth. But, you know, that tweet was insensitive, you know, and his response to Shannon for hoping that he would take the tweet down was even more insensitive, you know, and I think there should have been some level of consequence. I'm not saying he fired him, man, but there should have been some level of suspension, some level of making him be held accountable for saying something with a platform as big as his that was detrimental and that was harmful to people.
I mean, one thing I will say is that I don't know much about this topic because obviously the only reason why I, even knew what was happening was because of all the social media. And it wasn't even, and which I think is part of your point, it wasn't even the incident. I learned of the incident second to the Skip Bayless tweet. Like it was more out there in terms of D.L. Hughley and Nat Barnes and, you know, the list goes on of individuals saying Skip was disgusting for what he tweeted. And then after that, I actually saw what it was about, right? Because I'm obviously sort of not in the sports loop and you know, I wasn't consuming as much social media during this time. But I did see a lot of people, especially Black men, saying that his tweet was insensitive, wrong timing, all of that. And I think you're right. I think a lot more people who jumped to call for Black folks to, you know, apologize, correct, atone, repent, bow down. There's so many things that, you know, we are called to do whenever whenever someone is accused of harming any other community. And I think that it's a testament, which we talk about all the time, to the unity of that community, right? And Black folks have to have the same, that we will all, or not all of us in terms of every single person, but that there will be a majority of the majority who will say no and will push back together. Because once we do that, we force people to have to respect us the same way that other communities have really been able to accomplish, which is something, it's not something for us to be upset about. We should actually use it as inspiration for what we should be doing as a community as well. And so, you know, hopefully that is the message that sort of comes out of all of this, is how do we get to the point as a people where he can't even be on TV without not just a full apology, but certainly removing the tweet, right? Because if you're there, then we as a people will hurt your numbers by not watching your network, and that particular show will lose ratings, and also any sponsors they have will receive letters of demand, calls, and everything, because there is a way to force people, unfortunately, into doing what is right. I don't want to say submission, because we certainly don't like when it feels like that for us, but certainly force them into doing what's right, or force them to have to exit stage left. And so hopefully that's what we learned from this whole ordeal. And thank God the young man is doing better, you know, smiling, has his faculties, he's alive, he's talking. That's really, really like, whoa. Because I mean, after what I saw, I just didn't know that he was gonna make it.
Yeah, it was rough, man. And I think that's even more reason why I just think, you know, we as a community, we as people of just good moral fiber and people of integrity should just, you know, say, hey, Skip, that tweet needs to come down. So, you know, that's something that I would like to see. I would like to see us band together as a community, and as just people just of good heart, saying that the tweet should come down. And with that said, we come to the end of another episode of the #1 podcast in the world, Street Politicians Pod. Make sure that you tune in. We appreciate you guys. You know, send us your requests, send us your input. Let us know what you want us to talk about. Let us know how much you love us. Let us know how much you hate us. At Street Politicians Pod on Instagram. DM us. You know, we just want to say thank you for always supporting us. We couldn't be #1 without you guys.
Oh my God.
We couldn't be #1.
We are working towards becoming #1.
We are #1. Listen, it's manifestation. It's manifestation.
I understand manifestation, but I also know how people's minds work and how Black people's minds work specifically. When they think something is already done, they don't feel like they have to work to help do it.
You don't understand. I know that Black people want to be a top part of the winning team. So when they feel you winning, they jump. Oh, that's the winning team. That's the #1. Let me go.
Yeah, but we still need to make sure that people know that we're doing really, really well. It's the first show of 2023. It's a new year. Thankfully, we have survived it with our Black effect podcast network contract, and we're back again for another season, another year. But we do need people to continue to download our podcast and to support us, to help us to really, really be number one on the charts. Now, we're certainly number one in the hearts of so many, but there's work to be done to move us to the top of the podcast charts. You know, I was reading some research recently that talked about, Black folks and how they consume information. And podcasts is certainly one of the growing areas. It's not the first yet, but it is becoming that. And so many more of us need to turn podcasts on and listen to great content of all sorts. Black Effect Network, Podcast Network has so many different types of podcasts. They've got the Gossip Girls, they got the people talking about sex, hip hop, sports, the culture, politics, all kinds of issues. And you could just literally pop on a podcast and listen while you are cleaning up, while you're, in your car. And so please look at podcasts as a form of information, because there's so much, and there's so many good ones, so many podcasts that are out there, not just on this network, but lots of podcasts and lots of YouTube content where you can actually see visuals.
Yeah, and we were voted in the top 7 most important Black podcasts.
We were number 8 of 12, I think. Number 8 of 12 or something like that, like 8 of 25 or 20. I don't remember, but it was Essence Podcast, and we were in the number of top Black podcasts that are on the air right now.
That's us, Street Politicians, man. I'm not gonna always be right. Tamika Mary's not gonna always be wrong, but we will both always, and I mean always, be authentic. 2023, we coming for that number 1 spot.
Listen to Street Politicians on the Black Effect Network on iHeartRadio.
And catch us every single Wednesday for the video version of Street Politicians on iWomen.tv.
That's how we own it.